All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're looking at one of the absolute most fascinating paradoxes in the modern business world. I mean, imagine being a royal heiress, born into ultimate, unimaginable privilege, and deliberately throwing away your safety net to rough it out in the cutthroat world of global finance. It's a literal masterclass in grit, and her path to building a private equity empire? Totally unexpected. There's this quote, "When the money runs out, where does the food come from?" We are unpacking the incredible insights of Rajkumari Jahnavi Kumari Mewar. She's a prominent member of the historic Udaipur royal lineage in India, but she didn't want to just inherit her life. No way. She actively chose to learn the raw, unfiltered realities of survival rather than just leaning on her family's massive wealth. Because think about it, if you don't step out and actually figure out where your next meal comes from, do you ever truly understand the world? So to really get her business philosophy today, we've got to rewind a bit.
Section 1. The Royal Rebel. Leaving the palace behind. So Jahnavi actually descends from legendary kings like Maharana Prat. These are people who literally shaped Indian history. But her early life? It was all about fierce, rebellious independence. She was notoriously mischievous. Get this, she even got expelled from her convent school after a physical altercation with the mother's superior. Seriously. Realizing that staying in those gorgeous Udaipur palaces was only going to shelter her, she made a radical move. She packed up and moved thousands of miles away to Australia, completely ditching her royal safety net to face life on her own terms. And you know, that rebel spirit quickly morphed into a true warrior mindset.
Section 2. The 25-year-old founder, building an empire from scratch.
Now, if you want to grasp her hard-hitting business acumen today, you have to look at the absolute crucible that was her 20s. While she was studying in Australia, she actually cut off her own allowance from her father after just one single year. She wanted zero safety net, none. Instead, she ground through this completely exhausting daily loop: a job at 8 a.m., university classes midday, a second job in the evening, and a third job at 2 a.m., just repeating that brutal cycle day in and day out, all just to prove to herself that she could survive totally independently.
Armed with that insane work ethic, she quit a super secure corporate banking job at age 25 to start her own investment bank. And here's the kicker. When she called her dad to tell him his grand plan, he flat out refused to give her any seed funding. Basically told her, "You're on your own." So she poured in all her savings. And when that money started drying up, she didn't fold. She literally sold her personal furniture and expensive clothes just to keep the operations running. And most importantly, she prioritized paying her staff salaries over her own livelihood.
Things got incredibly dire. $50. She narrowly avoided bankruptcy, living on a super strict $50 weekly budget. And to put that into perspective, $20 of that tiny budget went just to feed her French Mastiff. She was surviving on absolute fumes for months, crying herself to sleep until finally a major contract hit, revenue flowed, and she stabilized the firm. That intense, deeply personal struggle to survive fundamentally rewired how she views money to this day.
Section 3. Startups versus real estate, a grounded investment philosophy. Today, she runs a private equity firm for ultra-high net worth families all over the globe, but she actively runs away from the startup space. She actually compares heavily VC-driven startups to air castles. Beautiful to look at, but built on these inflated, speculative, forward-looking projections that mostly just benefit the venture capitalists. Instead, she is all in on the tangible reality of real estate and logistics. It's physical, it historically performs, and you can literally go up and verify the asset. But obviously, real estate comes with navigating intense local regulatory hurdles.
And when we say hurdles, we really mean it. Physical assets require a literal warrior spirit. She tells this staggering story where she had to personally face down 25 armed land mafia goons on her family's property in Tier 2 India. She called the local authorities for backup, right? But in this bizarre, almost unbelievable twist of irony, the police show up and ask her to show her land papers. Instead of, immediately disarming the 25 guys standing right there with weapons. It's a stark reminder of the on-the-ground chaos you have to be willing to fight through if you want to hold tangible assets. But despite those crazy ground-level challenges, her broader macroeconomic view has totally transformed over the last decade.
Section 4. India's generational policy shift, from shame to global pride.
Her view on India's future has shifted so dramatically. 10 years ago, pitching India to global financiers was incredibly tough. She felt this deep frustration, almost an embarrassment, over India's poor global image and systemic political mismanagement. But look at where we are today. There is this surging, undeniable confidence. Global ultra-high net worth families now view India as a pivotal economic figurehead. However, to reach her ultimate future goal, India can't just be an assembly line. It has to evolve into a robust manufacturing hub that actually creates its own internal components.
But there's a global threat to that exact progress. In a 2021 keynote speech at the Vatican, Jahnavi highlighted a massive danger that growing economies have to navigate: the weaponization of interdependence. Basically, this is when powerful nations strategically manipulate global supply chains to exert geopolitical leverage. Think about it. If a country relies too much on outside forces for basic components, they can literally be held hostage economically.
So how do you actually secure a nation's supply chains against that threat? She says both government and private enterprise have to fundamentally rewire how they plan. We've got to ditch quarter-based thinking. You know, that obsession with immediate 90-day stock returns. Sure, it's standard corporate practice, but it builds incredibly fragile systems. She argues we have to transition to generational thinking. That means making decade-long infrastructure investments and building truly self-reliant supply chains that can take a global hit. And this deep macroeconomic view, it brings us right to her ultimate mission.
Section 5. The Power of Policy. Investing for the Public Good. Jahnavi is out there actively leveraging private business influence to genuinely improve public infrastructure. She launched a platform called Power of Policy, and she mandates concurrent development. What does that mean? It means whenever her firm develops a profitable industrial asset somewhere, they don't just extract value. They simultaneously build essential community infrastructure. We're talking local roads, proper sanitation, and schools, right there in that underprivileged area. She actually uses a proprietary financial architecture she designed herself to perfectly align corporate profits with localized social progress.
It's such a powerful model for business, and it requires looking way, way beyond the immediate horizon. Which leaves us with this final, critical question to chew on. Whether we're talking about our business strategies or our daily lives, are we building our future for the next quarter or for the next generation? It's a pretty profound thought coming from someone who literally walked away from a palace to figure out how the real world works. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I highly encourage you to think about how you can apply a generational mindset to your own goals.